It's Mr. Tom E. Curran. How are we doing today, sir?
Hello, friends. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you, Tom. Let's go ahead and start with the news of the day. How did it feel? What was your gut reaction to seeing Bill Belichick sitting up there on that dais next to Bubba in his cutoff sleeves, rocking the UNC blue? How'd that grab you?
It's kind of what I expected it to look like, so it wasn't so stunning to me. I think it would have been more jarring to see him in another NFL team's garb, sitting in front of at a dais with a Chicago Bears helmet next to him. That would have been more jarring for me. To me, the most interesting thing I thought was he wasn't the Bill Belichick we've been hearing in media for the last 5 months. He was really kind of dull. He was not it just was not a very compelling media session, I thought. It was very dry, and we know how Bill is at the microphone at press conferences, but he certainly knows how to turn it on. We know that as well, and I was surprised that it was not ramped up just a tad more.
Well, at least he didn't put on a fake country accent like Brian Kelly at LSU, Tom.
That would have been great.
That would have been kind of funny. But don't you think in a lot of ways, though, for Patriots fans, I agree with you, he was a bit plaintive, a little understated to say the least, and maybe he's just trying to make a soft entry into college football or the next organization, possibly last, that he's in charge with. But do you think, I feel like this is a best case scenario for Patriots fans. Bill Belichick now has a job. They now get a free favorite second college football team, or maybe favorite college football team. They don't have to see him coach against them on Sunday, or all the infographics from NBC Sports Boston and Bleacher Report that would come up like Belichick, winningest NFL coach of all time, but it would be in someone else's uniform. Because I think there's still a lot of scar tissue from watching Brady win a Super Bowl in a Buccaneers uniform for a lot of fans around here.
Sure, and I think that the scar tissue resulted because he kind of should have been here. Would that have brought a Super Bowl to the Patriots in 2020? Highly doubtful, or 2021. But I think the scar tissue existed because he didn't need to go someplace else. They could have figured it out if they worked at it. It was opted not to be done. This team that you're looking at right now that's on the field is 80%, 75% Bill orchestrated. And, the Sunday game presentation and the decision-making, et cetera. But the roster is certainly, Bill orchestrated in many ways. So I don't think that you're going to feel the same emotion. I disagree with you on that. I think that people would have liked to have seen Bill in the NFL, and they're not looking for some Switzerland-type place where they don't have to have their emotions torn at. So I'm not of a mind where I feel like I've been deprived of something. I understand perfectly his logic. Nobody in the NFL wanted him. They don't like the cut of his jib. They looked at his recent history. They looked at how much they'll have to uproot for a 72-year-old coach, and they said, no thanks. And Bill's sitting there saying, you're saying no thanks to me, Mr. 41-year-old GM who's never won a thing in his life, Mr. Team President, Mr. Analytics guy, Tony Khan, Shad Khan, whoever down there among the Khans was in the crosshairs of Michael Lombardi when he lampooned the owner's son with the analytics. Bill didn't want to be in the club anymore because the club changed and all the young kids were dancing to a different beat.
We're talking with Tom E. Curran, NBC Sports Boston. Tom, there's been a sort of internal debate here at WEEI between the shows and different people on different shows about whether or not this is considered a win for the Krafts. How do you think this is landing over there in Foxborough?
I think that is I can't even imagine going to that logic. The team is in such disarray right now that's like somebody handing you an ice cream when you're on your way into hell. Whatever. I don't care what happens with Bill. Our team is pretty screwed up right now. So to me, it's a win for the Krafts. No, not when the team is in a position that it's in. You could reasonably say, and there's no way that they possibly ever could have done it. But trying to thread the needle post-Bill by keeping 1 foot in the past with Jerod and 1 foot in the future, it's just not feasible. And the decisions made could have been perhaps made even sooner with Bill. There was no way that could happen after an 8-9 season, but the saber rattling started during that 2022 season and extended throughout, and then the resulting decisions made, releases sent out, foisting upon Bill O'Brien, making sure that Jerod, it was announced, was in renegotiations, and then, putting a succession plan in place. All of those things maybe could have been. We criticized Bill for a succession plan and the lack thereof in different places. Mm-hmm. The Kraft succession plan got blown up because the 2023 season was so bad they couldn't go on with it.
We're talking.
And their hands were tied. Sorry, and their hands were tied going forward because of the decisions that they had made by saying, "Okay, can we thread the needle here and keep Jerod?" And it hasn't yet worked.
Tom E. Curran from NBC Sports Boston here on WEEI Afternoons with Arcand and Fitzy today. All right, so let's move off the Belichick and into the Patriots of now and Jerod Mayo. All of us had a chance to listen to your podcast last week, Tom, and watch the video clips of you sitting at the hall with Jerod Mayo in that very interesting conversation. I was happy to hear the belief that he can become a better coach from year one to year two. But then, of course, because we can't go a couple of days without a click bomb going off in New England, we get the Boston Sports Journal piece this week saying, Mayo could be coaching for his job. This could be it if he really, blanks the bed over the final four games. From everything that you've heard, from him, on the pod and beyond, do you really think that if they struggle but, don't absolutely look like a tire fire, that there'd be any chance in the world Jerod would be Dunsky at the end of the season?
No. And I don't think that Greg Bedard thinks that as well. I mean, he was on the radio the other day. They asked him what's the likelihood that Jerod Mayo's back. He said 85%. If Jerod face plants and the team face plants, more importantly, and they look disorganized, and players are quitting in the course of games, and there's upheaval, and Drake May is suddenly – I mean, you could have any number of hypotheticals, but everything would have to go drastically wrong. You're basically saying if they struggle a little bit or underachieve a bit, it seemed to be what you were saying. No, he's not going anywhere. Yeah. I think everybody acknowledges that. The hypothetical was if the Patriots are a disaster over the last 4 weeks, then they could consider Jerod Mayo's future. I think that prior to that being written, we all would have agreed that that would be the case. And I think that, disaster, like unmitigated disaster.
Well, unmitigated disaster could be any number of things, right? Like when I think of coaches who are one and done, Tom, I think of there being no wins, which there haven't been, so that's strike one. But then there has to be like a scandal or you've completely lost the locker room and they've revolted against you like McDaniels in Vegas or something like that. There hasn't been a scandal so far with Mayo. How would you say his standing in the locker room is?
I can only judge it by the way the players talk, the effort given during the games, and whether or not they continue to be receptive. And I think his standing is good based on all those things. I really do. And when you look at Drake May and what he said at the podium yesterday, talking about urgency and the importance of the last 4 games and saying we don't want to do this again next year, now's the time to lay the foundation. You have your most important player articulating the same thing the coach would want. I don't see a lot of resignation. I just don't. So I understand that we're in a period of time where the team's not playing for anything, and it has been sluggish, and the coaching, whether it be defensively, in-game, decision-making with lack of aggressiveness, certainly should be in the crosshairs. But I just think it's dubious to take it to the level of, well, could they fire him? And then if we come up with 9 hypotheticals, then say, see, he's coaching for his job. I find that really hard to get through on a regular basis, spending 3 days talking about it.
I think one of the biggest disappointments throughout Pats Nation and beyond, but especially here in New England, Tom, is that we see Drake May developing at an absolute bottle rocket at an unprecedented rate. He's far beyond any of our expectations right now. But then who else is? And who else? They don't have to be as stratospheric in talent and development as Drake May, but I don't think we see anybody else developing, which could be an indictment of the draft, the roster from before, or both. So over these final 4 games, yes, they're playing for nothing as in a playoff spot or a postseason, but there's a lot still obviously to play for. Is there anyone you could possibly see on this roster emerging or going off or trying to make a name for themselves to give us confidence that they're also going to be part of the solution in 2025?
When you say trying to make a name for themselves, it kind of feels like, hey, I'm going to go rogue out here and make a bunch of plays. I don't think that would be the way to do it. But May did allude to the fact that I have to get the ball to these younger players who are being given opportunities. KJ Osborne has been moved out. Can Jalen Polk suddenly awake and have a 6-catch, 65-yard game? Let's keep it simple. Yeah. 4 and 40, maybe. Can Javon Baker, who has a concussion, was on the injury report this week and did not practice yesterday, can he make any kind of an impact? Can there be any signs of life from JaMychal Hasty of spending time on the offensive side of the ball right now? Does Jaheim Bell exist? How will Cole Strange look?
Yeah.
All of these things I think are really important because Cole Strange is a former first-round pick. It might have been a reach. It might have been something that Sean McVay giggled at, but still, he is not completely and irretrievably without merit. He started a lot of games, and he's had some good ones. So those things can be proven. Guys can put to bed some of the notions that we have to go and get a player here and a player there. And again, this is on Elliott Wolf. He should be at every friggin' practice, every friggin' meeting, paying attention to saying who can stay, who can't, who do we need to replace. He needs to be much better than he was, and that's an understatement, last offseason.
All right, Tom, but one more Bill question, and then we'll get to the flex of the game. Do you think he's going to be successful at UNC?
I think if we're measuring success by wins and losses, it'll probably be at 600 winning percentage, which is good. Is he going to win national championships? I doubt it. He's kind of trying to do the same thing that he did here with New England with the same people. He just wants to ride with the same people at all times, whether it be Mike Lombardi or the people he surrounded himself with. And we can say, well, it worked. Well, it worked when there was the greatest quarterback of all time was on your roster. The talent was a certain level. Bill left because he couldn't do things his way. And part of doing things his way is with his guys who have a shared vision and they all think philosophically the same exact way. Now they're embarking on something that's different. He's an ingenious guy, but for as flexible as he could be on game day and as flexible as he could be in seeking out new ways of doing business, he's fairly inflexible at this juncture in the way he wants to do things and whose voices he will listen to. So I don't think it'll be, my God, look what Bill Belichick did in North Carolina. He's Saban 2.0.
All right, let's get to the flex of the game presented by FlexCar. Ditch the dealership and save thousands with FlexCar. The Arizona Cardinals out in the desert. What's the flex of the game, Tom?
Flex of the game for me is the Patriots have had plenty of time to prepare offensively for this game. And to me, Alex Van Pelt has had some very good games and very good game plans. The flex is you got to flex up in aggressive situations. You're not going to the playoffs. You're playing against a team that actually has some aspirations and is coming off a couple of losses. So will you be aggressive offensively when you get inside the 20s or 10s, or you just hit the brakes? So they need to be much more aggressive than they have been, and I'll be curious to see how they operate once they start to get down low inside Arizona territory.
From your lips to God's ears, Tom. I've been screaming for that all season long, so let's hope so. That's yes. Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. Thanks so much for the time today.